Hey everybody, it's Kat and Steve with the Positively Midwest podcast.
Before we get started, we're going to help pay some bills.
We have hooked up with Anchor.fm to help us keep launching Positively Midwest to as many ears as possible. The more we expand our reach, the more lives we can help inspire.
If you haven't heard of Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, and many, many more.
You can make money with no minimum listenership.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchorapp.fm to get started.
Now, sit back and enjoy the next episode of Positively Midwest Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Positively Midwest. My name is Steve Jurens, and usually across from me is my wife Catherine, but you've got another Steve Jurens solo episode in front of you. She had to work really late because she's a hard worker and a beautiful woman at that. So we are in episode 55, and I'm pretty excited about this one because we were kind of approached by this organization, if you will, and it's called WeFaceItTogether.org, Face It Together, and they are the Sioux Falls location, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and we're talking with Dave Jansa. Dave, if you want to say hi.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me, Steve.
All right. Thank you. One of your coworkers, if you will, Allie, reached out to us via email and started listening and likes what we're doing, and which we super appreciate, and wanted to connect us. So maybe, give us a little background of yourself, and then we'll get into your awesome organization.
Sure, I appreciate it. So I'm a native South Dakotan, born and raised right here in Sioux Falls from a big Catholic family, 8 kids, 4 boys, 4 girls. But my life has been, I'm going to use the word consumed, but it's a pretty good word. It's been consumed by addiction. Of the 8 kids in my family, 5 of us have had some serious to fairly serious issues, mostly with alcohol. I became a heavy alcohol user at 16. It wasn't uncommon in my family, wasn't uncommon in my friend group, but it caused me to crash out of college. I tried to go to SDSU up there, only lasted about a semester. I was just more interested in hitting the bars and smoking a joint than I was in school. Came back, went to work. But at 33, I managed to find my way out of that snare, if you will. Some people use the word sobered up. I'm fine with that, but I abstained. I learned to stop drinking and getting high. I didn't go to treatment. I had the help of a couple of my brothers who had preceded me in that journey, and really didn't think too much about it. Just knew that I needed to change. I changed. But what happened to me after that, Steve, is the part of my life that became really interesting in that I had no idea how revolutionary that decision was going to be for me, how much better my life got, exponentially better in my 30s and 40s and 50s, and became extremely curious about what I had gone through and what my brothers and sisters and people close to me, coworkers. Addiction became a really source of curiosity for me, and I decided to retire early and sort of follow some passions. And just about that time, coincidentally, a couple of guys from Sioux Falls here, Kevin Kirby and Charlie Day, decided to venture into the addiction space, if you will. Kevin Kirby, of the Kirby family. If anybody's been to Sioux Falls, you might know the Kirby Science Center. They're a very well-known family, been around here for generations. And he nearly died from addiction, came back to Sioux Falls, his hometown, and basically threw out a net. We call them town hall meetings, and pulled everybody together that had anything to say or learn about addiction and said, I want to fundamentally do something in this space. And he put this organization together called Face It Together. And through a lot of really good, solid work, what Face It Together has come to know is that we can bring in peers, people that have either had an addiction of their own, and successfully managed it, come through it, and are healthy, or people that are family members that have gone through that really difficult struggle and come through it and are healthy. And we can train them, and we can put them in a room with someone that they share those lived experiences with, and we can give them some tools, and they can really walk alongside these people that are struggling with addiction or struggling with someone they know that has an addiction, and they can help them profoundly, connect them to community resources, and help them learn about their situation and learn about self-change and motivation to change and the stages of change. That's our core product. We have coaches. We either do it by phone or by text, over the internet, all confidential, HIPAA compliant, and we help people. And that's what I fell into. I was a volunteer. I was a coach. I was a coach trainer. I was in management, and now I serve on their board of directors. And now I'm talking to you to connect your audience that might be able to use our services. And now you're going to ask me all about them. I'm going to be happy to tell you.
Yeah, that was a very good introduction and even some of what you guys kind of do. And when we talked a little before we recorded, what I thought was real nice, because of the people that listen to us, generally, they know a little bit about my past, where, I dealt with some alcoholism in my family, and a little bit of some neglect, and certainly, an abuse of it. And, as a young child, even a teenager, and even when into an adulthood at times too, I always struggled with how to deal with that, and what to do with those emotions. And, sometimes I knew what not to do, but I didn't know what to do. And I really liked how you touched on, even if you're not the person who's afflicted with the addiction, but you're a family member or something, give me a little background or an explanation of how you can help someone that is, related or married or something to someone who's going through addiction.
Sure. So we call those people loved ones. We call our clients members. So just to kind of give you guys a little idea of how we speak, you might say. So our members that are loved ones, how we came to know that we could really help that population. And it's a huge population, Steve. Almost everybody has somebody in their life that has had an addiction or has an addiction that has impacted them. But some people are profoundly impacted because addictive behaviors are just very egregious when they're right in your face or right in your home. It is a very, very difficult set of behaviors to try to manage, because people with addictive behaviors are extremely manipulative, and there's a lot of dishonesty and those kinds of things. That's part of the addiction process and part of what goes with it. Where I think most loved ones struggle is that as a society, we've really not been very well informed on what to do when faced with those things. We've been informed in some ways to practice tough love. And while tough love, while there's a component of helping deal with addiction by putting up really strong boundaries to keep yourself safe, and that can seem kind of tough. The very term tough love, just being tough on somebody, is something that we really soften. We like to go about that in a little bit different way, and we can go in deeper there too. The other part of trying to live or be with someone that has an addiction is a term called enabling. This is a huge one. Don't enable them. Well, enabling is really helping. It's helping in every other context when you use that word. To enable someone is good. You are enabling your audience right now to learn some new ways that they might make their lives better. But in the addiction world, when you say enabling, it's a negative context. And so people tend to pull back and not help when they can, when it's appropriate. And so the whole enabling concept really needs to be teased out, and there's some great tools to do that. There's another sort of one of the pillars that hold people back from grappling and doing well with this is codependency. People feel that they're codependent, and it's kind of really a murky place, codependency. And when I say murky, what I specifically mean is it's not a clinically diagnosable condition. Codependency is not in the diagnostic and statistical manual. You can't really be codependent. It's not a diagnosis. It's something that the addiction world sort of just created. And while you can have dependency issues, and again, need to tease those out and learn about them and learn what's good and what's bad and what's healthy and what's not. The whole codependency thing is something that sort of clouds the issue and confuses people. I like to say that when loved ones come to see us, they're often just paralyzed. They just don't know what to do. Should I enable? Am I codependent? Do I need to have tough love? And then the other concept, kind of the four things that we really struggle with is letting people hit bottom. We don't subscribe to that. If someone in your life is struggling with addiction, to just stand back and let them get sicker and sicker and sicker and hit bottom. If there's something you can do to help them, it's just not good policy, I might say. So those are the four things that we really attack with loved ones. We bring them in, and you're going to like this because of your framework that I've seen that you've developed here with your podcast. We're going to bring them in and get them well, a loved one, and we're going to teach them about positive communication and how positivity in the relationship, while it might not help the person that's struggling with the addiction in their life, it's going to help them. And the healthier the loved one can become, the greater the chances that the person in their life that they're trying to help with will respond to that healthier, happier, more positive person in a healthier, happy, more positive way.
I mean, it's such a, you said so many things that are very powerful, though, they're for people to connect with, that you're empowering these people to take these tools and utilize them, themselves. And I think that, that I've had conversations like that with my friends. I know they've had it with me about, hey, while we're drinking together, you shouldn't be drinking so much, or something, in how you even go about those conversations with people. And so as I'm looking at your website, wefaceittogether.org, there's a tab just for loved ones, and it goes through, what your coaching emphasizes on, and I think something that's really important for people to understand too is that, and this was difficult for me to kind of understand, but, thanks to counseling, but, the blame and the guilt or whatever that comes with whether or not you've completely stepped away from this person, or you're afraid to help them seek help because of how they treat you back. But to understand that, it's like, it's not your fault, but it's in a sense, it's almost not their fault either. They've gotten whatever pushed them on that track. They've gotten too far down, that hole. So how do we, turn it around type situations?
Usually with most addictions, if you just peel back a layer or two and look into the person's past, you'll see, oh, wow, now I understand. And sometimes you can't, but it's someone close to you that's addicted, and you're angry with them often because of the way that they're treating you. And that's just what people with addiction do. That's what makes it so difficult to deal with, is that people that are struggling with addictive behaviors, again, have extremely egregious behaviors towards the people that love them the most. And it just doesn't make any sense. And if you love me and you want me to help you, how can you be so negative and so mean and so dishonest and make our relationship so toxic? But if you think about illness in itself, when you're not feeling well, you get angry. You get short with people. People with addiction are not well at all. It's a very debilitating disease that takes their brains and their framework and the way that they think, and it just infuses a tremendous amount of illogical, irrational behaviors. They feel bad about themselves. They feel mad at the world, mad at you, mad at everything. They just take it out on you. And you're on the other side thinking, John, I really want to help you, but I'm just so angry with you, and you're so toxic, and you bring me down, and you make my life so miserable. I can't help you. I have to remove myself from the situation, which is good. You remove yourself, you get healthy, and then you learn the correct way to have conversations and to try, if you want to, try to motivate them to get better. There are ways to do it that are way more effective than, again, the ways that we've sort of been taught to do it. I'll just give you one example. And this might not apply to a father-son or a relationship, but it really works well with couples, okay, partners, or father-child, mother-child relationships. And this is something that rarely gets talked about when we're talking about addiction, and that is to reward positive behavior. All we think about with addictions is punishing. I'm not going to do that because you're using and your behaviors are out of line. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to let you have that. I'm going to take that away from you. It's rarely ever considered that when they are trying to do better, and usually people with addictive behaviors do make efforts from time to time. They'll make a push. They'll go to treatment. They'll stop for a time, for a while. They'll make a push towards wellness. But rarely does the person who's trying to help them reward that, just like we reward positive behavior in any other instance. And it's incredibly effective. So rather than just pulling back and putting up a big wall and say, I won't, I can't, and have all the no's and the negative boundaries, the opposite side of rewarding positive behavior is it's always worked. It works with kids. It works with adults. It works with people that have addiction.
Yeah, that's you touched on a lot of things there that we talk about too. With it's always so easy for us to tear people down, and we talk a lot about social media. And one of the things we want to do is help people. If you're going to use social media, just like anything, it is what you make it. So you are what you consume in a sense. If you're going to follow pages or people that is going to upset you or conflict a lot of you, make you very angry and make you feel negative, don't follow those things. So, i.e., that was one reason for making Positively Midwest group page and our regular page. So we were always sharing content to help. But all too often, my wife and I have a conversation, especially with kids, our reaction, our emotional reaction when we're upset about something or angry always seems to be so much stronger and visible, demonstrated than when you're really, really happy. When's the last time people have cried because they're really happy, or they have, screamed in a happy voice because they were so happy, or they praised you for the positive things that you've done, but they sure as heck let everybody know when they're mad. They let you know when you've done something wrong. But our mindsets are so different to where now we in our household, we really try actively to flip it. So we might be just as happy about something as when we're just as angry about something. So I really appreciate what you said there, because it kind of brings me around to that. And I think, that's something we really try to focus on is focusing on as much positive as you do, because you still have to have a little negativity to appreciate some of that positivity,
I do know. And positivity is huge. I know it's obviously it's in your name. It's a huge part of what you guys do. It transforms people. I often tell people after my first visit, a loved one comes in and has, again, a spouse or a kid, that the relationship has become extremely toxic. They sometimes, literally it's done. They don't talk to each other. They're completely closed off, or they're near that. They're not having any appreciable positive interactions between themselves. They've exhausted the conversation, you might say, because it happens a lot with addictive behaviors. You hash over the same thing about 1,000 times over, and you never get anywhere. And so, but they come to me, and they come to us, and they want help, and they usually want to act. Loved ones want to jump right in and act right away. What can I do? How can I change this right now? I'm so sick of it. I'm so tired. I'll say, go home. You don't have to do anything different at all. You don't have to say anything different. You don't have to act any differently except in one way. Put a different tone in your voice, a more uplifting tone in your voice rather than have it down here and just kind of dragging around the same old thing. Go home and announce to the person that you're struggling with, that you really want to help, that you have found a place, found a person, found something that has given you hope that you might just be able to break through this problem that you've had with them for a long, long time. And when they come back at you and say, what's this all about? You say, I don't even know yet. I just feel good. I just feel hopeful that maybe something's going to move here and budge in this intractable situation that you're in. And just see how that goes. And it's just amazing how just kind of cracking that egg and starting out with a different tone of voice can make a big, huge difference in communicating.
And I imagine too, if I'm a loved one and I want to reach out to my significant other that has an addiction, we would go through coaching together. At first, until we have some sort of a plan or something in place. Do you also help people, reach out to their significant other, or are you present sometimes and set up meetings to talk to them all together, or do you generally try to empower that loved one to have that conversation themselves?
That's a great question. We let our members drive the bus. So if our member can, and sometimes they come in together. That happens right out of the chute. Boom, the husband and wife show up, and that's great. They might split. The person that has the addictive behaviors might go get a coach. They may stay together and coach together. Sometimes a loved one might come in. Let's just say it was a husband who had a wife that was a problematic alcohol user, might coach that husband for 2 or 3 sessions. He changes the conversation around this problem. And where the wife was most likely resistant, she now isn't, because of the changes that he made. And she says, yeah, I'll come in and talk to a coach, or I'll come in and meet your coach with you. So we let it go wherever it goes and wherever our member feels strong enough to drive it. But we do see that a lot, because that's what they come in for. Our loved ones usually come in, and the first thing they say is, I have someone in my life that I really want to help. And we say, great, we can help you help them.
That's amazing. So I was looking through your web or Facebook page too. That's Face It Together. And there's quite a few good posts you have on there too, where people can check out some people's journey to wellness too. I think that's one of our goals with our podcast and some different posts is to help take down the stigma of whatever therapy it is. And, honestly, everyone has different ailments, but no matter who it is, if you're reaching out to your pastor or priest, or it's a life coach or a therapist or whatever, any of those steps are certainly one in the right direction. But I really like how you have different stories that people can kind of check out, and your website too has a few of those tidbits on there, so people can understand, hey, there's other people, or that person looks like me, or hey, that's sort of what they did for a living, and I never would have guessed they were struggling, and now they have found help.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you ask yourself, or have ever asked yourself, what do I have a problem? My husband told me, my brother told me, my coworker said I did, with any kind of chemical addiction. And you just don't know. Well, that first of all, that's a part of the process, is just staying unwell, staying addicted, and just sort of denying it. We've all heard the term denial. In clinical terms, that's just pre-contemplation. You just really haven't thought too much about it. But when you reach the contemplation mode, Face It Together is just a great resource. Call up and have us talk with somebody that's a peer, non-clinical, non-confrontational, and they're just going to have a conversation with you about where you're at and what you're doing and what you might be willing to explore as far as a change process. And that's what our first session is going to be, just a very laid-back conversation, no strings attached, completely confidential, HIPAA compliant. What's going on in your life? Tell me about what's happening. Tell me why you're calling. And what you're probably going to hear on the other end of the line is, yeah, I've been there. I went through that too.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. All too often, and I've been asked this too, which is also why we don't claim to be experts, but we have some experience. But, I've heard from counselors before where they've asked, well, if you haven't gone through it before, how can I know, what to do? But one, if you're trained in what you do, that's making a huge difference. If you're whatever education or process you went through, that's one thing. But yeah, having the experience like that, you can truly, I think, relate to people on a very like emotional level, and really empathize with the situation they're in. So I think that means a lot.
There are millions of really, really great trained clinicians across the country, but they can't claim to be peers. And sometimes that's a roadblock. Some individuals that are struggling with really highly stigmatized issues like addiction and mental health just can't seem to be able to break down and relate and connect with someone who hasn't been there before. I really feel bad for some clinicians. I've known some that are just absolutely excellent, and clients or patients just won't give them a chance because they don't have the lived experience. And some people with the lived experience, like a peer coach, don't have the really, really finely honed skills that clinicians do, that can do really deep therapy like EMDR and some of the great therapies that can be given by clinicians. So we like to connect our clients to clinicians whenever we feel that it's appropriate or whenever they're willing. We just want to be a partner in their wellness. We don't necessarily have to take it all on ourselves. We would just as soon prefer to connect them with a treatment center, connect them with a clinician, connect them with their priest, connect them with their mother, connect them with their brother, connect them with a health center, something, a book, anything that's good and healthy that they want to connect with and walk alongside them. And just encourage them to keep connecting with things that are working for them. And we'll keep giving them ideas.
That's awesome. So now I would imagine that, there's always kind of a starter conversation, but this has to, one of the things people are worried about the most is, I can't afford to do that, or it's a really good excuse a lot of the times. So, I'm guessing, is something like this extremely expensive, or why don't you give us a little layout of how the memberships come together?
So we do have a paid membership program, but if someone cannot meet that, if it's just too much money for somebody and they happen to meet income guidelines for the state of South Dakota, and that's just difficult to just throw a number out there because there's a couple of different factors that come into play that do the math, you might say, on whether you meet income guidelines or not. But let me just say this to your listeners. If you have any reservations whatsoever, it doesn't cost you anything to find out if you meet the income threshold or don't. If you qualify, you can receive our coaching services free. And many people qualify. So again, the best thing to do is to contact us, get a free consultation, fill out an eligibility form, and see if the services we provide might not be free. It's a really good chance.
Yeah, I think people are really surprised by that. You know, I want to try to take as many excuses away from you as possible for you to try to better yourself as one of my missions. And you know, that was always my biggest excuse was, you know, it was a money thing. And there were times in my life where, you know, I was suicidal and had those issues and thoughts. And you know, when it's something that serious, I can't believe looking back on it that anybody would say, well, I'm not going to spend $50 or $80 or $100 or, you know, whatever it is. And there's even, you know, you guys do stuff virtually. So if you're not from the area, these coaches too, you're working with people virtually as well, correct?
Absolutely. You can do face-to-face with your smartphone, you know, like a Zoom call. We can do it over the phone. And then once someone is a member of ours, we can text back and forth. Again, most people now are really familiar with the health system's chart, the online chart. Mm-hmm. You know, that's an electronic medical record, you might say, that's HIPAA compliant. You can get on, you can put in your username and password and connect with a health institution. You can do the same thing with Face It Together. You can connect with your coach. You can email them, text them, and have phone conversations with them and everything, all absolutely confidential. And again, it's pretty hard to say that you can't break away and sit down and have a phone conversation with a coach. You know, that's just not a big threshold to something that could literally save your life.
Yeah, and you know, if not empower you to, you know, to help your loved one, you know, if there's someone that's struggling too. So I think it's really amazing what you guys are doing and how you're, you know, we learn more and more too, which I am so happy to hear that there are ways that seem fairly simple for people to find whatever context of counseling they need in their life. There is someone or some organization or something out there trying to help people, and if you can't afford it, you know, they'll find a way. And I know a lot of counselors that are that way too. So the first step is you have to take a step and do it. Ask, reach out, you know, find out what's available for you. And that's why I'm super glad that you guys reached out to us so we can help spread, you know, anything to our listeners that you guys offer, because I think this is amazing and it wasn't something I was familiar with. So I also like down there too, you have a resources tab on there, and you even give out tons of different reading material and even different videos, as well as meeting. You have a meeting finder on there to find an AA or a Narcotics Anonymous, as well as Smart Recovery on there too. So very impressive.
Yeah, again, we're not claiming to be the end all, A to Z answer for people that have addiction or for a loved one. But we are very knowledgeable, and we have a ton of resources, and we'd love to connect people. But one thing we did on our own that I think you and your listeners will be very impressed with is we found when we got into this arena, if you will, we wanted to do things differently. We saw a place where we just felt that there were a lot of holes that weren't being filled. And one of the biggest holes was the inability for almost all people in the addiction business, if you will. Kind of hard to think of it as a business, but it is a huge business. To measure whether someone is really, truly getting and staying better. Now, a lot of your listeners might say, well, if they're not using, that's the measure, right? I was a heavy alcohol user. I was a quote unquote alcoholic, not a word that we like a lot. Mm-hmm. But just for context, I'm an alcoholic. I quit. I'm better. Not necessarily. And on the other end of the spectrum is someone who might actually be able to reduce their drinking substantially, enough to go from a place where they're problematic and their life is not in a good place, they're not healthy. They might actually be able to learn to reduce their drinking. And in fact, most people, that's the first thing they want to try, that they're willing to try. And they can achieve wellness. Some people stop drinking and never get really well. They're just kind of miserable. And that's not healthy either. So we created something called the Recovery Capital Index. And it's a series of about 65 questions that we give every one of our members, get a baseline on them, and track their progress through this. Gives us a look into their well-being, a look into their strengths, a look into their weaknesses, so we know what to work on, what to praise. And we have that validated by Sanford Research. It is a scientific instrument. It's called the Recovery Capital Index, and everybody that engages with Face It Together takes that if they want to, and very few don't. So if we put some science behind what we do. The connection is great. The human interaction is absolutely integral. You need it. But we also embrace science, and as I've already told you, and you've probably picked up on with our medical records interface, we embrace technology. So we embrace the humanity, and we embrace the science, and we embrace the technology of getting people with addictions and their loved ones well.
That's awesome, because that's what I find with, the podcast and even our social media. There's a lot of different ways nowadays to reach out to people. And even, we all have X amount of number of friends on Facebook, and, you always end up seeing kind of that same circle of whatever it is, 30 to 50 people. But you can kind of tell by people's posts nowadays, how what they might be going through something, especially for the listeners out there. I'm sure you can think back to a time you've been scrolling through and you went, ooh, I wonder what Dave was going through when he posted that. It's, and so I think you can tell, some people are pretty blunt, and they'll type something up that's, hey, I'm not doing really well tonight, I could use a friend. And that, you jump right on there and try to at least reach out to them and get that conversation going. But so sometimes it's just as simple as that. You see a post, you see people struggling a little, maybe you reach out to them if you're a close friend and start to dig into it. But I reflected on what you said earlier, too, that I don't think people understand how much, whatever percentage of mental illness they have, you might quit drinking, but you might still be, a jerk to your spouse or to kids or coworkers or whatever. You might still have something ailing you. So I really appreciate how you guys continue to coach and try to make people understand, it's not just the disease of addiction, but you have some mental illness to deal with too. So
addiction does a lot of damage to people's brains. Alcohol, just as an example, that's most of our clients, our members suffer from alcohol is either their primary or secondary addiction. It's just, especially here in South Dakota, it's very prevalent, and they don't understand just how toxic this substance is to their brains, relatively long term, sometimes completely long. People might be familiar with the term wet brain, where alcohol literally just toxifies someone's brain to the point where it will never be the same. They will never recover. But most often, what has happened is alcohol has had a profound impact on the brain and the way that people think and the way that they deal with life. When they stop drinking, it's not like a light switch. It doesn't just all of a sudden you think rationally and your relationships become instantly better. It's a process, and it can be a very lengthy process. to learn how to live your life without pounding this poison into your body every day. And so that can take years. And if you don't stay on a path and stay, engaged and know that you are still recovering, that's why the word recovery is so strong with addiction. If you don't stay in recovery, you can stall and you can go backwards, whether or not the substance is involved or not.
Yeah, I have a lot of people now. We've been doing this, you're the 55th episode, but a little over a year now. I think a couple weeks ago was our official first anniversary of our first kind of post in the group. And I've learned more and more now. I'll get thrown out Mr. Positive or some kind of, nickname like that. Or, the people do ask, like, how can you always stay positive? Or, what drives you to keep doing that? And I relate it a little bit to what you said, because it's not like every single morning I'm positive, or every afternoon or every night. That I certainly have a bad day or a couple of bad days. One of the things I talk about with my counselor is, my personality. At times, if I get really upset, and maybe it stems from depression from years past, but if it's really upsetting, it might take me a day or two, to kind of get out of that rut and get back into the groove. So when you said that recovery, that's ongoing, and that's not something like, I quit drinking, everything's perfect now, and I'll be a better person overall. It's like a portion of that was taken out of your life, but now how do we get back to fulfillment now that you're sober? And how do we get back to still feeling those concerns, feeling those problems inside of you, but dealing with them in a different fashion other than reaching for whatever your addiction was, so that really resonates with me when you talk something like that, saying that. I think it's really important people understand it's not that every day we expect you to be positive or every day we expect you to tackle that addiction, but to know that every step should be celebrated in the right direction. Every thing that you do when you are doing your best is what's important. And when you fail, know that that's a teachable moment, and you can grow, from that. That's kind of how you made me feel anyways.
Yeah. Well, a big word in mental health and addiction, a bigger word every day is learning. We are learning creatures. But to learn something difficult, to learn how to live life on life's terms without, again, pounding a fifth of whiskey, if that's what your brain has been conditioned or learned how to do over a decade, let's just say, and that's not an unreasonable length of time for someone to remain addicted to alcohol. So for more than a decade, your brain has learned to rely on this poison to get you through the day. And now you've learned, again, that this isn't working. Your life is in the tank and your relationships are broken and you lost your job or whatever. You've come to this impasse. Well, now you have to learn how to live life without it. And that's not easy for a lot of people. And it's not a simple process. You need to learn those skills. And then what happens typically when you learn something, you get better and better. You slip, you fall, you have, setbacks, relapses, lapses, but you continue to learn, and then it gets easier and easier, and you get better and better and better at this new skill set. And people with mental health issues, it's the same. They're learning new things that their therapists or books or someone is guiding them somehow to learn a new strategy to cope with whatever it is that's upsetting them, and you just get better at it, and better and better and better. It becomes easier and easier and easier. Most people think of here's a common misconception about people with addiction. My sister-in-law said to me, I hadn't had a drink for 25 years, and she said, "Wow, I really admire you." I said, "Oh, thank you." And she said, "Yeah, you get up every day and you grind it out, you white knuckle it through the day and you don't have a drink." And I said, "Oh my gosh, is that what you think it is?" I don't have any desire to drink. I have zero desire to drink. I have a negative desire to drink. I remember what my life was like when I was drinking. That really sucked. And I've learned to live life without it. It's much, much easier. And this is not a difficult road that I'm on here after 25 years at all. But a lot of people think that. I test drove that on a lot of people. I said, do you think, because of this one day at a time thing, and that's not a bad slogan or anything, but I do think it sometimes sends a false narrative out there. Most people that get well from addiction or addictive behaviors, after they learn, there's that word again, to live life in a different way without this toxic substance or whatever, are free from it. And it's almost, if not completely, effortless.
Yeah, it's like, if you want to relate it to the context of exercise or eating healthy or whatever you're doing to make yourself a better you have to make it habitual, so I think that's what I've always gotten out of One Day at a Time is it's people that, yeah, it is a struggle and you'll struggle with it for your life, but think about, and this is what I do struggle with as well, is being overweight and overeating and being unhealthy, and even in my own head saying, oh, well, my wife's not around, I'm going to eat this candy bar or whatever, because it's like a guilt-free, you're indulging type thing. And that can be what drugs and alcohol are for some people. But anyways, as I slowly, if I made a decision to eat chicken and it was grilled chicken instead of, a big greasy burger, I do try to celebrate that as much as I beat myself up in front of the mirror or whatever. So, if you're struggling with addiction, it is every day that you don't, go back to that or your thoughts get clearer and clearer and you're not thinking so much about that. Those are little like, the cliche term is baby steps towards that final goal.
So one of the new gurus, if you will, in the world of addiction is a doctor called Gabor Mate. He's written some great books. And when people ask him, they'll say, what must it be like to have the mind of someone that's addicted? What's it? Tell us about the people that you deal with and help us understand addiction. And he'll say to them, if you really want to get to know someone intimately that has an addiction, he says, it's really easy. Go look in the mirror. We are addictive creatures. Now, it might not be heroin or opioids. It might be fried chicken, right? Or greasy foods. And that's not an oversimplification. You do not have to look very far. Exercise, work, shopping, sex, pornography, the list goes on and on and on and on. We all have addictive habits. It's just a matter of how impactful they are on us and how devastating they are on us, and then how we learn again to manage or to, you might even say, completely defeat them, to just get on top of them and get on the other side.
Yeah, it always seems like in a change like that, to me, whether it is, obviously with addiction, but even with exercise or eating well or trying to be a little better parent, we keep talking about learning. So, when I say you are what you consume, I read some version of a self-help book or articles even, as often as possible, multiple times weekly. So I'm trying to put things in front of me that will keep changing that mindset. But, again, you have to make it a lifestyle change. You can't just, say, well, I ate well go on a diet, and you don't eat carbs for, a whole month, and then you slowly introduce it. And, there's so many different diets out there that, in my heart, it seems like we need to have a lifestyle change so that we are evolving into that person, and that becomes our existence or just how we operate. So naturally, I know some that, that did struggle with alcohol and they can go to bars with their friends. I don't know if that's recommended or not, but I know people that do it and they have, like you said, they are almost disgusted with alcohol, but they can go out with their friends and enjoy it. And that's their mindset, is to have a negative or disgusted thought about alcohol than to think, oh, maybe I could do that one or two. I guess, we have a friend of ours that drinks NA beers, and, he just wants to kind of hang out and, when he disc golf or whatever, and he'll grab a couple NA beers, but it's just kind of, I don't know. So I don't know what thoughts are on that, but I feel like that's a pretty powerful thing, once you get that mindset changed.
My thoughts on that are what we learned early on at Face It Together, and that is that people's addiction wellness journey is theirs, and it is unique. Some people cannot re-engage with the friends and the culture that they were living in before. That was, if we use alcohol again as a hypothetical, they can't go back to the bar. They can't go to the parties with those people. They just can't. The temptation is too great. And for whatever reason, it just doesn't work for them. And the opposite is often true. Some people have really good, relatively healthy relationships with other people that have addictive behaviors. And they want to stay engaged with them. And they do. And they go back with a mindset that I like you, but I'm not going to drink with you anymore. I am going to be this. And that was me. So I can speak very clearly to that. When I stopped drinking back in my early 30s, I remained friends and I remained at the same social group. I just didn't drink with them anymore. And I can tell you that in my nearly 10 years of coaching at Face It Together, that was not an uncommon experience. But the other is true too. Again, there are people that can, there are people that can't. There are people that love the one day at a time mentality to help them get through it. And then there are others who say, once they have decided to abstain, they simply look at their life as a non-drinker, and they can clearly see deep into the future that they cannot ever see re-engaging with alcohol again. And that's healthy for them. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You have an addiction, here's what you need to do, A, B, C, D, E. No, typically, and you learn this with dieting, if people just look in their own lives at some of the things they've struggled with, back to learning again. We try and we fail, we get better, we learn what does work, we learn what doesn't work, and it's the same with addiction. We have to figure out what works for the individual, and then we have to support them in that journey.
That was very well said, because I really appreciate how you kind of went through how everyone's journey is different. And I keep kind of flipping the context all over the place, but that is something we also talk about, that no matter where you're at in your journey, not everyone has done the bad things I've done or will, but I talk about my story, so maybe you don't, or maybe you reflect on something that's smaller that you do to your spouse or to yourself, and you quit that. So, that's really great. Yeah. That everybody's journey is different. So
everybody's journey is different. And then there's just a whole lot of, there's a whole lot of ignorance that surrounds addiction. People don't understand that, that there are a lot of different ways to go about, achieving wellness. And there are medications now for people with alcohol and opioid addictions that are very effective in bridging the gap, and they're non-addictive. And people don't understand, it's called medically assisted treatment. We've all heard about buprenorphine and the drug that people take to wean them off of opioids. Well, there are also drugs that people can take that will help you through the early days of alcohol abstinence, that will reduce the cravings or reduce the effect that alcohol has on you if you would happen to slip and drink. So there's a lot about addiction that people don't know. There's a lot of things that they've heard that they feel that they have to do, so to speak. and they probably haven't resonated very well with them. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And they come in and talk to a coach at Face It Together, and usually they leave saying, I didn't realize that. And I'm so glad that you support that, because I've always felt that way, and I don't like that. And you said that I don't necessarily have to like, whatever that particular mentality or thought process is. We're going to find a way for you to get better. It might not be easy and simple. We might not nail it the first session, but we're going to help you probe around and find. And if you're a loved one, we're going to figure out what it takes to get you healthy and what it takes for you to try to establish a better relationship with that person. Sometimes they're resistant. There's the thing about loved ones, if we flip back over to that for just a second, is we almost always, we have a huge success in making our loved one members feel much, much better about themselves and their world. That often translates to the person in their life that has an addiction. They often respond the majority of the time in a positive way, sometimes just, way positive way. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes people with addictive behaviors, regardless of what you do not respond. Well, that still leaves you, the loved one member or loved one client, healthier. And who knows what's going to happen down the road, right?
Definitely. You touched on a lot of emotions there for myself. If for anyone that knows anything about my wife and I's journey, real quickly, we've been together since we were 16. We got engaged at 18, married at 20, and now we're 36, and so we've been together for 20 years and married for 16. And I think, there's a lot of people that don't stay together that long in general, yet alone, with being high school sweethearts, things like that. I guess what I'm truly getting at is I don't think people realize too, the benefits for the loved one or the, in a sense, non-addicted individual. Catherine's been through a lot of struggles with me through, my mom struggling with it and going through that and seeing how that affected me and how it affected people around her and us, and how I went down, gotten stuck in these ruts with alcoholism and, losing control with it at times and just going too far. And so in sum, what I'm getting at is, for a loved one that may be on the more non-addicted side of the scenario, the kind of bond that you make with your spouse and this kind of true partnership that, in my personal opinion, at times seems like we've fallen away from a little bit, and maybe a little bit of modern society. Some people maybe give up a little easier, or some couples do, and it does take two, but I don't know. We both have stuck by each other through some unbelievable stuff, and I just want to throw that out there for people that are still contemplating, should I help someone or should I seek help? From both sides of it, I can tell you, I haven't talked to my mom in over a couple of years, and that was alcohol and I'm sure some mental health related concerns. Through my therapy, we're hopefully getting me stronger to figure out how we continue that conversation or reopen any doors. With my wife, I can tell you what it's like where someone did never leave your side, and we stuck it through together, and now our bond and partnership is unmatched in a lot of arenas. So you really made me kind of think on that, to tell that story to people and let them relate to, that however touches them.
Well, my hope for you is that you do get strong enough to re-engage with your mom. And if she still is really, really, really sick and toxic, you've learned that you need to back off and maintain your own health first, but that maybe you take a stab at learning more about her addiction and learning more about the good tools that are out there for re-engagement. Call up and get yourself a loved one coach and go through those. And if you're ready, and you might be really surprised, it can really be fulfilling to reopen that door if you're in the right place at the right time to do it and guided by your therapist. But what loved ones are told all too often in our society, all too often they're told that that's not ever a possibility. You have to go over into your camp and remain healthy and never re-engage. You can't do it. You can't handle it. And that could be true. Don't get me wrong. But all too often, it's not true. All too often, if you go in there with the right mentality and the right tools and the right knowledge about what your mom's going through and why she does and thinks and says the things that she does, and you can attack that issue, and you might just be able to rebuild it.
Yeah, and I can tell you already that, there's plenty of times where, behavior that upsets people, I'm already have started to look at it differently. Even just the other day, someone was, talking about their significant other and that they really upset them and things like this and treated them poorly. And, you could tell with the tone and inflection, the body language, it's not typical behavior. And I said, wow, that doesn't sound normal for them. I wonder what they're going through right now.
Mm-hmm. What's going on. And
so, yeah, I think through this journey I'm going through and how it's, and I always say to people on our podcast and so on that, I'm 36 years old. I've been going for, almost a couple of years, and I'm fixing or changing 34 years, let's say, of, habitual negativity or, depression or, any of those situations, all those things in my life, so we can't expect it to change so quickly. And so to, allow yourself to, another reason why we celebrate those small moments, but allow yourself that time and that patience to get to where you need to be. And I was looking at your website here too. And one thing I wanted you to touch on was how do we get started? What do we think of? But I come across your peer groups tab, and you have the craft, the community reinforcement and family training that you guys do. It looks like on Wednesdays, and it looks like there's quite a few goals that you guys have on here. Can you talk on that a little bit?
So craft is how do I want to describe it? Is a clinical interaction that was devised by a couple of PhDs down in New Mexico State University. And the goal of craft was to put into practice some of the things that I've already talked about here tonight in a clinical setting, to try to move what they described as treatment-resistant individuals. So you might say that most loved ones come through the door with a treatment-resistant individual. They don't want to get treatment. They don't want to get help. They don't want to change. And so Kraft put together a set of really quite lengthy and clinically driven exercises that proved that if followed and if guided through it, the great majority of the time, a loved one practices these new techniques, gets healthy, number one. That's the number one piece. And you and I talked about that. And then, again, re-engage with reinforcing positive behavior and putting up great boundaries. And it's successful. It's successful in moving people towards treatment or wellness. So we took the fundamentals of craft and learned from them and put them into a little bit more practical application in a peer coaching model. And then we also layered in a whole lot more about learning about addiction and understanding, as you said, why people do the things that they do, and put it into a coaching model. So craft in its core form is performed by a clinician, but it's a set of fundamental tools that they discovered in their research coming up with this. We are informed by that as coaches that face it together. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. It really, when I started looking through how you help people work toward the goals, it's with their substance abuse and help eliminate behaviors and replace negative behaviors with positive ways. Everything we did kind of talk about, it looks like you guys touch on it, and it's a free meeting that people can check out, and maybe that's a good way for them to get the ball rolling on whatever side of that equation you're on.
So there are two group style meetings that support the basic themes that we learned as Face It Together Loved One coaches. And that would be, if you can find a craft meeting, you're going to hear a lot of the same language and see a basic track that looks a lot like us. And then Smart Family and Friends. Smart Recovery, I heard you touch on that earlier. Smart Recovery also has a family and friends meeting for loved ones. The special sauce, the two ingredients in the special sauce of Face It Together are, again, being craft informed, Smart Family and Friends informed, and then the special sauce is peer interaction and the Recovery Capital Index, the technology and the interface that we bring into it. I feel that we have taken the best of what the clinical world has come up with and put it into a model where we're face to face with somebody with lived experience. And I think we have something that's just incredibly powerful for loved ones that are struggling, and for people with addictive behaviors as well. We do the same thing on the addiction side. We've taken proven motivational interviewing and a great knowledge about addiction, paired it with a lived experience, and help people with addictive behaviors learn how to manage their addictions as well.
Holy smokes, Dave.
Yeah. Good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, you knocked this podcast out of the park, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that.
You bet. Well, first I'll ask, is there anything that you think we didn't cover that we should? And then we'll enter that infamous shameless plug zone.
Well, I'm gonna slide right from one to another. I want to reach into, first of all, the minds of the people that are listening to this podcast, and I know you're out there, because addiction is so prevalent, especially here in South Dakota. If you've got an issue, don't be afraid to call Face It Together. Don't be afraid to call a simple toll-free number, or go to our website, which is wefaceit together.org, and hit, contact us or reach out. I can't apologize. I don't know what the button is, but it should be pretty self-evident by the time you get there. Talk to us. Communicate with us. Call us at 855-539-9375. I have a conversation with somebody. We're not going to bite. We're not going to make you do anything. We're not going to tell you to do anything, that you have to do anything. This is not confrontation. Simply want to have a conversation with you. I know how dark it is. I know how scary it is. I know how you think you've done and tried everything and that nobody can help. Well, you haven't called Face It Together, and you haven't had this conversation. So you really haven't, if you're honest with yourself. So give us a crack. Give us a try. See if we can't help you. That's what I'm going to say to the people that have an addictive behavior. To the loved one that's absolutely beside themselves and completely exhausted and confused and conflicted, and they feel like they've tried everything. It's pretty much the same message. You haven't tried to have a conversation with a loved one coach who has really a set of tools that you're probably unfamiliar with, that are, again, proven in science to be extremely effective. Give us a call. Same number, same website, and just ask for a loved one coach and see if we can help you with your issue.
Yeah, and your website has got a ton. It's very well done, a ton of information on there. And so I'm going to put all this in our description like we generally do too for the podcast, so they can find it and click it and look at it. But wefaceit together.org. If you scroll down to the bottom, right away is their address, and that can throw you into Google Maps. There's the Facebook link. There's Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. You guys are on too. And then if you just go to Face It Together, that is your Facebook page. over 3,300 people are following that, and tons of information's on there. I've kind of been scanning that while we were talking. You can get to know the coaches, and you can ask them certain questions at times. Lots of different tips and stuff on there too. So just amazing that they're with all the bad things we hear in the world, and sometimes what gets thrown through in front of us on social media and in news, that's another goal, mission, a reason why we do this for me is to highlight people like you, like your organization that, we all have to make a couple of bucks, but there's a way to help people if they can't afford it. And if you can, it's something you should look into, because this is a life-changing thing. This isn't just about, a small step. This could literally change your life. And I commend you guys and appreciate everything that you're doing out there.
Well, we really appreciate you having us on, Steve, and hopefully we can help some of your listeners get through their battles. We'd sure like to have a crack at it. And again, if you meet income guidelines and you're a resident of South Dakota, there's a decent chance, a really decent chance, that you would be eligible to be coached free. So don't let that hold you back either. And if you know somebody, if your neighbor has a kid that is struggling with addiction, tell him or her that there's help for them at Face It Together. And if you know somebody that's struggling with addiction, give them our website and tell them to give us a call and have it. I always say, give us a call and have a conversation. It's absolutely all it really is. It's just a conversation about where you're at and what you're struggling with. And we'll tell you if we can help. And most of the time we can. Yeah,
it really is. And that's a lot of what therapy is. And I try to tell people, it's just after a while, when that relationship's built and the barriers are down, it's something I look forward to. It's part of, a decompression, or gets me motivated, or I'll get different ideas. It's kind of going and talking with a close friend, but they still, keep you in check on things and have you look at the other side of the coin. And, I can't imagine how many people you guys have helped over all these years. And I'd love to even do some follow-up sometimes, or maybe get one of your what do you call them, members, if they're willing to do an episode and give us a little more background of how the experience was going through the program. I think that would be pretty cool too.
I think that would be very eye-opening. Another perspective from, in fact, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow here in town, and bringing along one of the folks that I coached years ago, because hearing it from that angle is truly has value. Here's where I was. I went and saw Face It Together coach. This is what I experienced there. I'm sure that Allie would love to get you hooked up with somebody.
Yeah, because everybody needs to understand that their journey, even though it's unique, you're not in it alone. And a lot of people have gone through similar situations and come out the other side. And I think that's where, when you talk about conversation, that means a lot, because just knowing when those defenses come down, you're just a human being like everybody else, and you can shake this and you can live without it. So that's awesome.
One of the things about addiction, we can touch on this before we leave, is that most people become really exhausted with the process. We hear, I've tried everything, a lot. And when they learn that most of the time people with addictive behaviors, or having somebody in your life with an addictive behaviors, typically is, unfortunately, quite a lengthy process. It goes on and on and on, typically for quite a while. The life cycle of the average addiction is somewhere around in between realizing you have it and coming to grips with it and managing it is nearly a decade-long average. That's a long time to live with somebody that has addictive behaviors. It's a long time to be addicted to something that's really disrupting your life. And so people think, well, I've tried everything, I've done everything. And they get really frustrated and they give up. Don't give up. There are fresh ideas. There's fresh science. There's a fresh approach available at Face It Together. Give it a try.
Yeah, I love it. You have some stats on there that 95% are more hopeful after coaching and 85% haven't used since their last coaching session and 74% more likely to say their health is good. So I think those are some pretty powerful statistics. So
we're driven by data. We're driven by science. Absolutely.
Yep, that's great. That's what a lot of people I'm hearing now is, this stuff is science with your mind and how you feel and how you react. And that therapy helps you unlock understanding, that we can fix you through that way or help you get there.
Absolutely. We love therapy and we love science. When we get sick with cancer, we love the heck out of science, don't we?
Yep.
I mean, well, the science of addiction has really been sort of left at the doorstep in America over the last almost century now. But we're catching up. There's a lot of science. There's medications, there's interactions, there's cognitive behavioral therapy, there's EMDR, there's just all kinds of things that people are likely unaware of that a coach can connect you to. And maybe some of the things you're unaware of are the things that are going to help you.
Well, you're doing an amazing job at it, and I appreciate, again, what you guys are doing for everyone.
Appreciate you having us on.
You bet. Well, thanks, Dave. I will get you a copy of this back to you and Allie's email. It'll actually be coming out, though, this coming Wednesday in a couple of days. We're going to use it right away for that. And I'll get all of your guys' info and stuff in our description. And like I said, shoot you a copy. So thanks a million again for doing this. And hopefully we can connect in the future and do something else again.
Thank you very much, Steve.
You bet. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, bye.
All right, everybody. Well, that was Dave Jansa with WeFaceItTogether.org. Face It Together is the name of the place, and they're located in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I can speculate that there's probably perhaps similar organizations if you're not from the South Dakota area. So, if you are from our area, though, they do stuff virtually, and it sounds like pretty amazing to reach out to these people and really see how much they can change. I wish my lady was here this evening to help out, but like I said, she was busting her buns at work, and that's very important. She's an extremely hard worker, and I appreciate everything she does for our family. And this is a special episode for me myself, because I think if you are an avid listener, you're pretty familiar with my journey and some of the struggles I've dealt with. And I feel I just feel compelled to try to be someone that helps others find some sort of fulfillment or therapy. And addiction is pretty connected with me. So thanks again to those guys for reaching out to us and hooking up. Check out the description to follow them and find all of their social media and websites. And if you feel compelled, I would appreciate it if you gave us some feedback. That's one thing. I don't get a lot of feedback on some of our podcast episodes. If you're listening, or you listen to something like this and it's this compelling and this inspirational to get you on a different track, feel free to send us a message. Send us a personal message, send us a message to the group, set up a fake email address and send us an email to positivelymidwest@gmail.com. Whatever you want to do that makes you feel comfortable. We don't have to share it or anything either. And in fact, without someone saying that you can use it, I wouldn't, if we asked or something. So anyways, rambling, send us a message. Let us know, if this is the kind of content that's inspiring you, or if maybe it did put you on the right track. But I'm very, very, very proud of all these people that have dealt with addiction, are struggling with it still, are going through recovery, are thinking about it. You can do it. And I'm proud of all the people that have. We've got some of them in our group, and you guys are amazing inspirations. And you being open and posting about that on your own social media, you never know when you're going to tip someone else over and they make a change. And that's something that we're trying to do. So, anyways, that is episode 55, WeFaceItTogether.org, Dave Jansa. board of directors over there. And I think I feel pretty comfortable closing this baby out. Thank you guys again. We appreciate you. As of now, January 18th, 2021, when I'm recording this, we do have available some 32-ounce stainless steel water tumblers on our website, positivelymidwest.com. We got some 20-ounce coffee mugs there too. Tumbler. And so they keep stuff hot forever, keep stuff cold forever. That's one of the things that our missions when you go to our website is we want to help provide therapy to others. And if that means I got to pay for a session or two to maybe get the ball rolling for you and show you that you can actually do it, that's what we're going to do. Or if we need to help one of your loved ones find a way to help you out, that's how we'll do it too. As well as giving back to different charities that we believe in and feel a connection with. And then, you know how it is. You got to buy new equipment. You got to get a little better here and there. And sometimes you got to do a little advertising. So as that pool increases, there'll be a pretty small portion of that goes to help with things like that. So anyways, check out positivelymidwest.com, and our online store will be launching some new stuff here pretty soon as well. So with that, I'm going to close this baby. Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for listening to the Positively Midwest podcast. Our hope is to inspire, engage each other's thoughts, and leave you with some great advice. Be sure to join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram at Positively Midwest Podcast. Make sure you like, comment, share, and screenshot our podcast with all your cool friends. Every little bit helps. We are on most all major platforms, and you can stream it on our website at PositivelyMidwest.com. Thank you, and as always, please always stay positive.